All right, here we go. I am going to start the show officially. It's at 7 o'clock. Welcome to the Larry the GM Trade Deadline Spectacular. I can see that we've got a couple of folks on the YouTube side with us, and I am joined by one of my esteemed Patreons, my patron, Michael McInerney. Michael, go ahead and say your name so I don't butcher it.
Oh, McMenemy.
McNenemy. All right. Michael
Say
is
it fast.
here. Michael has pays the dues on the Patreon, so he helps fund the website. So Michael, thank you for joining. And anybody else that does join in on the YouTube side that is a member of the Patreon, you can follow the links that we have set up. So, what I have for folks today is what I thought I would do is kind of actually I'll run through it on the Patreon side so you guys can see how we kind of keep the patron links pretty clean. And you can see the articles that the patrons get. Usually they either get them right before everybody does, or if it's like after midnight. They'll get them when I'm done, and then everybody else gets them in the morning. So they have early access, or actually then sometimes members get them, and then the general public gets them even a day or two later. So there are benefits to being a member of the Larry the GM patron group. You guys will hear my dog occasionally. I don't have anybody else here to keep her quiet, so we'll have to enjoy the dog show occasionally. Um, in fact, let me do this real quick. This will make it a little better. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So today, what I like to do is run through some of the recent articles. Get yourself warmed up for. The main purpose of our time will be talking trade deadline. Michael, you any ideas you have or anything you'd like to talk about? You're here as a co-host, so let me know anything you would like to talk about today. Michael, do you have anything you'd like to talk about? Oh, Michael just dropped. All right. Well, hopefully he can come back. All right. So let's go through the articles. Oh, there he's back. Okay. Hang on. Michael, you're back.
Yeah, sorry I lost you. I couldn't hear anymore.
Okay. Hey, anything that you would like to talk about today?
I mean, I guess just kind of what we think is going to happen at the trade deadline and kind of
Okay.
from there.
All right. Well, we will definitely get into it. All right. Let's talk about buyers and sellers because I did update my buyers and sellers article today. Who are the buyers and the sellers at the trade deadline? And the way I did this is I went through, used the Fangraphs projections for obviously where the teams are now, what they project the rest of the year will be, and therefore what they project the standings to be for each one of the divisions. They actually predict their Astros and Rangers will end up tied. I think the Astros currently own the tiebreaker, so they would eke out the division. And Mark Mark wants to talk about the Rangers. Okay, we will talk about the Rangers now. They're making life hell for the Astros today. Um, and Mark, if you could get ready to when we go hit that subject, be ready to share that trade that happened, so I don't have to look it up and take time. The wild card. Then we'll talk about. Then they have the wild card standings. They show that the Orioles, Blue Jays, and the Rangers will be projected to be in the AL playoffs as wild card teams. They show the Blue Jays and the Rangers to be tied, so I'm not sure how that will play out. Which means the Twins will play either the Blue Jays and the Rangers, and the Orioles will either play the Blue Jays and the Rangers in the first round, and then it will be the Astros as the 2 seed and the Rays as the 1 seed. Um, and uh, so with that, I guess the Orioles, Blue Jays would play the winner of the Orioles and the other two. we'll just say the Orioles make it easy. The Orioles would play the Astros, and the Rays would play the winners of the probably I would guess the Rangers. So Rays play the Rangers, and that will set up for. I mean, the Orioles versus the Astros could be a really tough series, guys, because I think the Orioles are still going to buy quite a bit at the trade deadline. So that's what that's what they project. And so, given all that, I think the Rangers have already been as projected. The Rangers are have been, and I don't think they're done yet. I would not be surprised if they still go get one more relief pitcher or maybe even one more starter because Evaldi is down hurt. So the Rangers are just in that super buyer category. I think the Baltimore Orioles are still going to be buying quite a bit before the second. Then you got the buyers. I think the Rays are going to buy something. I mean, the thing with the Rays is they're very careful about what they buy. I think the Twins are going to be really limited because I think the Twins know, yeah, they may win their division and it's kind of a crapshoot at that point, but I don't think the Twins really think they're going to win the American League pennant. So I think they're going to be pretty limited. Of course, the Astros, I expect. Dana Brown even said today he's still trying to get a lefty bat. We'll talk about that before we're done. And the Astros still are well. They've said they're out of the starting pitching race. Let me address that for a minute. So I guess this is and Dana Brown has been very, very transparent. I would say he's been overly honest about things. So this may be he may be the exception to the rule, but most teams this is the time of the season that don't pay attention to what they say, pay attention to what they do. That's the LarryTheGM rule for all things, but that it applies more at the trade deadline than any other time. I think the Blue Jays will be buyers. The Angels are buying. I don't think they should be, but they are. So I think they're trying to impress. I think they're buying almost for a separate reason. They're trying to impress Otani to be willing to be the sign the free agent deal with them. They're doing it more for Otani long term than they are actually to make the postseason. I think it's not clear to me that the Yankees are really buying, and it's I don't. I mean, I think in default I had them as selling, but I'm not 100%. I don't really know. What do y'all think? Astros buy the Yankees buyers or sellers? Michael, what do you think? Yankees buying or selling?
I think they should sell, but I think they have Judge back, and he's been short sample size since he's been back, but he's
Yeah.
still hitting. They may think that they can do something. And I saw the Marlins maybe were looking to get Torres. I don't know if they let him go, but yeah, I think they're probably going to be 50-50 buyer seller. I don't know.
Yeah, see, they may be kind of taking the Astros approach, right? They could trade Glaber for that that core outfielder, right? And Brandon, hold that thought because I think I at some point in this conversation we're going to talk about like what the hell are the Astros going to do because the one trade I really wanted them to make, basically the Rangers made today, and my only hope is that the Yankees are. You're right, Brandon, that they might really like Jake Myers. So the Yankees, they need outfield help, and so if the Marlins can give them that, that might be an interesting combination, Michael. So uh, I I don't hear a lot from the Red Sox that they. I mean, some of these deals that are being made are not like yeah they're buying, but they're not like massive deals, right? So there's buying and there's buying. I don't know if the Guardians I mean, Guardians may make some smart deals that may help them, but I don't really like they're not gonna sell the farm to try to get in to this postseason. And of course, then the sellers are I don't know Seattle. I think Seattle's gonna I think Seattle's gonna sell, but I don't really know what they're doing. I mean, it's so murky on some of these things, guys. That it's really hard. The White Sox, obviously, they've been a huge seller so far. The Tigers, I think, are going to sell. The Royals are selling, and the A's have already sold some. So that's the American League. National League, it is interesting too because I think the division leaders, well, in two of the divisions, it's pretty clear. The Braves and the Dodgers are probably going to win their divisions. The yeah, Brandon, I think that's possible too with some of the teams we just talked about. The Brewers and the Reds are kind of in a dogfight for the Central, and I don't suspect either one of them is going to think of themselves as huge buyers. So I think the Braves and the Dodgers have already been buying, right? And then you've got the Phillies and the Giants who would project to be the first two wild cards, and then you've got the Marlins and the Diamondbacks basically projected to be in a tie for the last wild card. And then you've got the projection system say the Padres are going to make a charge. They kind of beat up on the Rangers. So that's nice for us. And so it would be really interesting to see where they go. And yeah, Jeremy Severino has been a disaster this season, but considering his past success, could the Astros, could it be worth it? Let's hold that thought. When we get to the trade scenarios, like can somebody see what his trade value is right now? Because I think that is an interesting question. If the Yankees go into sell mode, Jeremy, that'd be the kind of thing that they could pull. He wasn't a player that when I went through and did all of my, guys, how many Larry the GM trade articles have I put out in the last month and a half? It's been kind of silly, but I've tried to look at it every single way possible. But those are the buyers and sellers, guys. I think the Braves, the Dodgers, the Marlins, and the Giants are probably buyers in the National League. I don't know what the Diamondbacks are going to do. I think they may just kind of make some small buys. The Phillies really are interesting to me. I think they may be in that category. They'll buy certain things, or they'll sell certain things, and there could be a match with the Astros there. The Padres, I don't think the Padres are going to sell. I'm not sure they're going to buy, and so it's kind here I am. I got this article, and like, well, Larry, you're telling me it's like this. The trade deadline's 2 days, 3 days away, and we still don't know. That I don't know what to say, Michael. I don't know what to say. I mean, some of these teams are on the bubble, and it's not clear what they're going to do. They shouldn't really be buying, but they're too close to be selling. So what does that mean? Um, the Reds, the Reds are right there with the Brewers. I don't think either one of them is going to be buying. I don't think either one of them is going to be selling. I think they're just going to ride out what they got. They could make liars out of me. They may go get a one mid-level guy, and you say, okay, well they were buyers. Well, there's buying and then there's buying. Then you got the sellers. The Cardinals have already been selling. The Cubs. Now the Cubs claim they're not selling. We'll see. And the Rockies, the Nationals. The Nationals don't sound like they're. I don't hear many rumors with the Nationals in them, but maybe it's just because nobody really wants what the Nationals have. I don't know. The Mets have already been selling and super sellers, which is whole interesting with JV, and then the Pirates could be selling too. So there it is. Like it should be way more clear than it is about who's the buyer, who's the seller. Comments on that? Anybody? Michael, any comments about that?
No, I think you're kind of right. I think we're going to see a lot of, trades for trade's sake, if that makes sense. Just kind of teams like that. I don't know if the Reds will try to move India or anything like that. Guys like that. I think the Padres are going to stand pat. I don't think they're going to get rid of Snell or Hader. They may, but yeah,
They,
I don't know.
yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of like old-fashioned baseball trades that are like trades We got strengthened this. I mean, this is what Dana Brown said, right? We got too many outfielders. We're going to trade an outfielder for something we need. And I was like, okay, well, that's unusual. That's not normally the way the trade deadline has worked, but I think that is the trade deadline in 2023. Hey, Gabrielle, uh, thanks for joining. Or Gabriel, sorry, thanks for joining. Um, so let's talk about what am I doing? Oh, I know where I am. Sorry about that, guys. I was confused all of a sudden. All right, so we can go through these more. I mean, let me. I'm just running through it. If you guys haven't read the total bat impact, so this is a metric that Larry the GM that I created myself to try to separate the players that have really made a positive impact and ones that have made are having a really negative drag on the offense. You can see the chart here and go into the article and you'll read more about it, how it comes together and see some other charts. I think it's a little interesting thing. I'll tell you that bat impact total bat index really moves and total bat impact really moves quickly. So if somebody has a really good day, they can gain a thousand points or more of impact score. Of course, I did talk about Kendall Graveman, my view on the trade, which I'm sure not everybody really appreciated. But then I did follow that up with my thoughts on how they can improve Kendall Graveman, which is very similar to things we've talked about in the past. And then we talked about trading for Verlander, what a deal would look like there. And then we talked about who needs an outfielder. And let's kind of start the jumping off of the trade deadline with who needs an outfielder, because I think this was honestly um, probably the deepest way to really think about this. Yeah, okay. Mark says that Sonny Gray and My 8 are available for a blow me away price. It's a vernacular that we use on the website if you don't know that's about. And yeah, okay. Well, I don't want to blow them away for anything. That so when we looked at who needs an outfielder, we started with the teams that were low on the project on the who's delivered WAR, and then the teams that have low projected WAR, and we really settled on to the Phillies, the Diamondbacks, and the Yankees as the three primary teams that I think um, are the teams that I think the Astros really could move an outfielder for. And the Phillies, I don't know if you guys know of Matt Strahm, but he's kind of their middle stash long reliever that has started 9 games this year. To be honest with you guys, if the other deal right here, the- well, the other deal that I talked about with the Cardinals basically happened to the Rangers today. If I had to pick a deal that needs that could happen, this is the deal I would make. I would deal for Strom, and we can go to so one thing to understand is that the MLB or the baseball trade values people, they're updating those values almost daily. So some of these values that I showed a few days ago are not even up to date. Like Corey Jolks is down to 2.6. That's, I don't really think that's real, but so the Phillies, they need outfield help, and you think the Guardians need outfield help? Interesting. They didn't show up on my filters. I wonder why. Huh. And so Matt Strom, if it happened, you heard it here tonight on the Larry the GM Trade Talk. And you could put a package of jokes and a couple. I just gave you an example. Kennedy Corona as a player in our system that has a lot of value. That's probably honestly it's probably blocked, and so he's one I would definitely pick to trade because I think there's a real opportunity for him. And so the team, the Diamondbacks, the Diamondbacks have a couple pitchers and I think this is why if we talk about like most of the starting pitchers, and I can pull that article up, that most of the starting pitchers that I had as trade targets are either all gone or are too expensive. And I think that's why Dana Brown is really focused on trying to get a reliever, and I think he's talking about the back end of the bullpen. I think he's really talking about a long relief pitcher. And quite honestly, guys, if they got Matt Strom, that would be like the best case scenario because it's a pitcher that can pitch, um, start and relief. So there's some other pitchers in here, Kyle Nelson, Kevin Kinkle, and then the Yankees targets that I had. I mean, I would love to get Clark Schmidt. I think he's going to be too expensive. I would love to get Ian Kennedy, who showed up a couple of the trade articles we've talked about. That's maybe possible. They could get. I'm sorry, Ian Hamilton. Maybe they could get Ian Hamilton. But it would probably cost Myers and maybe Barber and that sort of deal. So that's what I think is going to happen. That I think. So let's talk about the Flaherty question. So let's go. Let's go over here. St. Louis. I want to make sure I'm looking at the latest data. I know what I looked at last time. So Jack Flaherty, he has shown up in a couple of my articles that I've talked about like pitchers. So for me, Jack Flaherty here, he's got a 4.43 ERA, 4.23 FIP. You see the expected ERA. I'm not sure if you guys can read that. Expected ERA 4.6, xFIP 4.47. So basically, guys, that means he's going to be like an innings eater that could help, but he's probably not a starter for the postseason. Now, there's probably some value in that. I guess your view on Jack Flaherty would probably depend on your view on the starting pitching that we have. Are you comfortable with having one of our younger pitchers start? Are you okay with JP France starting Game 4 of a potential postseason series? Well, are you even okay with Javier starting a game in the postseason? I'm not sure what the answer to that is, right? But that's kind of where it comes down to. So yeah, Flaherty. I mean, I think that's kind of the. I've always said like this stuff about Dylan Cease. I just like the price tags there are just beyond. I mean, the prices that are being paid at this trade deadline are insane, and the prices for like a Dylan Cease, we the Astros just aren't going to make that trade, guys. They're just not. They're not. So, Michael, I'll let you jump in. Any thoughts you have about Flaherty or anything I just recently said?
I think again it comes down to just what it costs. I think he had some value actually, but what is it going to cost at this point?
Right, and that is the point. I mean, every deal sounds good until you say, okay, what does it actually cost, right? So let's go see what the trade value is. Trade Value's website says Flaherty is a 3.6. So that's Corey Jokes and maybe a couple other the smaller level prospects, and you should be able to get that deal done. That I'd be for that. Now, guys, I don't. It's not that people need to understand. I don't hate Corey Jokes or I don't hate any of the players I put in these deals to be traded. I just they're the players at the right level, and I think they're players in the group. When I separated the buckets of who's available, he's in that available bucket, right? Of players that as I think the Astros should be willing to trade. So if you're going to limit yourself to players in that bucket, you're going to limit yourself to players along the lines of the ones that we're bringing up. So that's what I would think about that. Um, who can trade? Who can? So Hector, are you saying who can trade for from the Yankees? Who should we trade for from the Yankees? Is that what you're asking, Hector? Yeah, and to me, that's the players I showed here. Um, to me, that's that's one of these four players. Um, Vasquez, as of a week ago or a few days ago, was still he was in AAA, but he had played some for the Yankees. So Clark Schmidt is on the fringe of being too expensive. Nick Ramirez, it's a possibility. My idea would be trading for Ian Hamilton, who's that long reliever, and then get Randy Vasquez, who's a starting pitcher that could be a relief valve and maybe eat some innings and be a starter. And again, it's not somebody that you would project as a great pitcher for you guys for the Astros, but it would be possibly better than what they could have. So here you see his projections: 4.64, 4.82. That's not great, right? That's not. But he is somebody that can eat some innings. So that's what I would say. Those are the guys I'm looking forward to, and I'm really Ian Hamilton is the one I would be targeting the most from an Astros trade standpoint. And you see earlier this week he was 8.9. I think he's down a little bit from that. Or so, but that's who I would do. You got to be kidding, Hector. You got to be kidding me. Okay, all right. Don't distract me. I'm going to update the Maldi hot seat tracker, and anybody reaches that conclusion after reading the update that I mean the last update was pretty much a a crucifixion. It's going to be worse now because Maldi's been worse than he was at that point, and Diaz has gotten a lot better. So I just can't deal with that. Um, King, you want to talk about King on the Yankees? All right. Well, there's probably a reason I didn't put him in there. It may be the value. So let's look at that. Let's look at that first. I'm gonna King, 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 King will be King. Yeah, King 18.7. Nope. I don't think we're gonna trade for King. No, yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I don't. they're not. They're not. Jack Brown or Brown Jack. I would say. So here's the question: is Diaz a fluke, or do you think he can be a top five hitting catcher? Okay, well, so Diaz has hit at every single level he's played at, all the way up. I think the answer to your question is neither. He's not a fluke. I'm not sure he will be a top five hitting catcher, but if you change that, or do you think he will be a top 10 hitting catcher? I I would well, my belief is that he is definitely a top 10 hitting catcher. Brandon, I don't know how desperate the Yankees are. I don't know. I mean, the Yankee fans are pretty desperate, and I think Brian Cashman's pretty desperate. So we have that working into our advantage, right? But I think desperate maybe looking at you we're able to get Ian Hamilton from them for a Jake Myers. And yeah, Jeremy, the bar is pretty dang low for Astros catchers, guys. It's pretty low, and Diaz arguably is already on the cusp of not even having 400 plate appearance being. He's probably a top five Astros hitting catcher of all time already. So It's the dearth of talent at the Astros catching position is pretty epic. It's as good as second base has been through the years, as good as first base has been through the years. Um, you know, catcher's just been the opposite of that. So as good as starting pitching has been through the years. All right, what else you guys got trade talk wise? Let me check my notes for today. Do you guys want to talk about? Do y'all want me to go through what my concerns with the Graveman trade, or do you Graveman redo at the Astros, or did you read the article enough that Larry don't make us don't depress us? Because I'm willing not to talk about it because I don't really want to, but I'm pretty concerned about Graveman, and I just I have questions like where's his role, and I thought it was maybe they were just trying to work him in, but like we bring Graveman into the middle of today's game didn't bring a lot of confidence. Michael, did you have other topics you wanted to talk about or other trade ideas? Oh, Michael lost it. Brandon, I do not think the Astros are going to trade France. I don't think they're going to trade Belak. And mainly that goes back if you go to the article where I talked about the two-part series where the Astros pitching is has a problem. That problem really comes down to innings. I don't think the Astros can afford to be trading any of their starting pitching, which takes them out of comp. I do like the Astros last year could trade pitching. This year they I just don't think they can. Um, no, well, Mark will tell you I was not pleased the minute he alerted, and Mark alerts me to a lot of transactions that I have out there, and I was not. I don't know what my exact words were, Mark. I think they were no effing way, um, because I have an opinion about Graveman, and I hope he proves me wrong. Um, right, and Jeremy, and that is the other thing is Belak postseason Belak would be the long reliever in this bullpen, um, and and that would be pretty good. What do you think eventually happened with Astros and trades? Just one more reliever. So if you tell me, Larry, what is the one move you think the Astros should make? I think I already told you. I think the one move they should make will be one of the moves that's on this page. And and all all things aside, if I had to pick one player I want the Astros to go get today, it's Matt Strom from the Phillies. Now, I suspect, I mean, the Phillies are on track to be the first wild card, but the Phillies pitching is their strength, and they're strong in their starting, and they're strong in their bullpen. Their outfield situation's less than ideal, and they've got a lot of outfielders that are pretty bad outfielders. I mean, bad defensively. So you can make the argument like having even Corey Jolks, but that you know having a Myers that they could come in and count on helping them in the outfield would 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 be really good. So um, my deal, and I'm scrolling because I think Strom's only 4.5 right now. Um, so yeah, I mean, give me Corey Jokes. I mean, they can have this whole package: Kennedy Corona, Corey Jokes, Andrew Taylor for Matt Strom, and I think that's a deal that I think it'd be a win-win, and I think that is I think that is the ideal move for me. That they have a player like Matt Strom that can be both. If I remember right, is it? I want to get this wrong. Matt Strom throws lefty. That's why he's also my ideal move. So Mataply hasn't had a really great year, right? Plus, um, right? Isn't I looked at he's in AAA right now because yeah, he had a 5.74. So the old Manaply move that I wanted to do in previous years, thank goodness they didn't move. LarryTheGM was wrong about that one. So if only one move, top three quality starting pitcher, postseason baseball, so dependent. Yeah, Jeremy, I hear you. I just think that the prices are so high for starting pitching that I think for me the ideal move is a pitcher that can do both. Matt Strom would be my ideal move, and it's at a price that they can do without killing it. Did I tell you that the Astros checked in on Verlander's value about an hour ago? Okay, well, guys, I know Hector. He was my boy last year. I fully admit it. And I mean, you see why 2.85, 2.83, and left-handed relief pitcher. That's what I thought the Astros needed. That's the thing. Things change, and that's also a story, Hector, about like relief pitchers, their performance. I mean, we predicted it for Montero. Like this he's not going to have another year like this. This is not career Montero. But I mean, the one thing I'll say about my apply is this 4.18 FIP would be a pitcher that I'd be interested in. The 5.74 ERA is a pitcher I'm not interested in, right? So, which one's the truth? Yeah, and so the Verlander of it all, guys. I think the Astros could make that move for Verlander if, as long as it wasn't. I mean, as long as it was structured similarly to the way I framed it, I would be for it. Where interestingly enough, the deal that the Rangers and the Mets made for Scherzer, very similar financials to the way I framed it for um for Verlander. They did. The problem is that the Rangers had a higher, more highly regarded prospect that they could send in that deal. So I don't know the total value that the Rangers sent. I think the Astros could match that, but the Astros would match it in ways you know I don't know that the Mets necessarily would be all that interested in. So I mean, let's just call up the article that I did put out on Verlander. So ultimately, I came down here to Verlander and quite a bit of cash. Now Verlander's got a -11 trade value, right? So, but I said that the Astros need to get about $25 million cash, some of it this year, and 20 of it next year. And I know there's a third year option in this that they can vest if he has 140 innings next year. And that's a whole nother. That's probably, I think that's the hardest part of the Verlander deal, guys. And I said they should trade the Mets Myers, therefore Nimmo could move over to the right field, and they have a good outfield situation. And then Hamilton, who's a fairly well regarded prospect, and then give them your Urquidy essentially to replace the innings from Verlander. But I think that was under my expectation. The Mets would be more interested in a deal that could help them, and also maybe let them contend. Yeah, it was 35 million that they got from the Mets for Scherzer. So I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, overall, of a lot of the deals that were made, it's one of the more fair deals that has been made at the trade deadline. Uh, Gabriel, you said, do you think Spencer Getty plays a role for us this postseason, kind of like HB? No, I don't. Number one, Spencer Getty is really close to his trade, to his innings limit. I don't think he's gonna see a lot of innings, and so I think Spencer is on track to be able to join the team middle of next season, and let's just hope he continues to perform in AAA and along those lines. Um, sure. So the Mets do need minor league outfield depth. Well, there you go. So we can do. Brandon, there's one thing we got is minor league outfield depth. We can fill that up. We can fill their outfield on multiple levels. Fill the depth in their outfield in their minor league system. We there's at least 4 or 5 outfielders in our system that I would be more than willing to trade if I got decent value for. Okay, other questions. They can have all this. Well, yeah, I mean, Pedro Leon is an interesting situation. I have been up and down on Pedro Leon, so I don't have a strong opinion on Pedro Leon. I want to see what he does next year. Some would feel the same way about Dearden. I was really thinking Dearden was great, and hasn't he's been okay, but he hasn't been as good as I thought he was going to be. Other thoughts, guys. Let me check my phone real quick. I think there may be some messages for me. Do you think Dusty's cheese has slipped off his cracker? Oh, Johnny. Johnny. Well, Johnny, why don't you answer that? What do you, I, I know I should not say what I said today on Twitter, Johnny. I don't want it to go political. I I uh I think Dusty's had Dusty Dusty Baker is pretty clueless. Dusty Baker used the excuse that Yainer Diaz was not playing today because Yainer Diaz, with 61 career plate appearances, has been really poor versus left-handed pitching. Yainer Diaz has been really poor versus left-handed pitching. Give you that. It's 61 plate appearances. Yainer Diaz has the tweet says it, like a 186 BABIP. If you think Yainer Diaz is going to have a 186 BABIP for the rest of his career versus left-handed pitching, you don't understand what BABIP is. That one number invalidates every single stat we have in the 61 plate appearances of Yainer Diaz versus left-handed pitching. Yainer Diaz also has an xWOBA versus left-handed pitching, which takes into account the the exit velocity, launch angle, and what should be the expected results of 336, which is above average. Yainer Diaz is not bad against left-handed pitching. Yainer Diaz just hasn't hit against left-handed pitching because Dusty Baker's convinced. Now, to be clear, Martin Maldonado overall is a very competitive hitter versus left-handed pitching right now. I am fine with a platoon that Maldonado hits against all left-handed pitching. or left-handed starters. But as Johnny said, the Astros weren't even facing a left-handed starting pitching today. So there was absolutely no reason for Dusty Baker to bring up Yainer Diaz versus left-handed pitchers when the starting pitcher was right-handed and there was right-handed pitchers all day. I didn't understand it, and I'm not playing games anymore. I'm not. I haven't been playing games with Martin Maldonado and Dusty Baker for a year, and I'm about to get even harsher. So it just needs to stop, and they need to stop BSing this fan base. Jack Brown, you're right, and one of the things that I think Astros fans don't appreciate relative to our prospect base, and they say, well, our prospects are a lot better, and they don't seem to be getting any credit for them. Well, part of the reason they don't have credit is because they are generally 26 or older. You're not going to get a high prospect rating for a 26-year-old. That's not to say that he can't come into the system and these players can't come in and do well, but it's just like, okay, understand that that's not something a team wants to pay a premium price for, right? So in the trade season, it's not we're just not going to get that benefit. Which bench bat do you think the Astros could go after? Tony Kemp. So, Brandon, what I'll say is the bench bat the Astros could go for is Michael Brantley. The bench bat the Astros could go for is um, is Mauricio Dubon. I mean, now that the team is getting back to being healthy, I don't think there needs to be a trade for a bench bat. Now, the team and the GM talked about getting a left-handed bat. You know, I understand the desire to do that, but a lot of the players that we have right-handed hitters have reverse splits. So I'm not really sure the left-handed. I mean, there's been players I've thrown out in the trade deals along the way. I won't be surprised if they go get a low level. I mean, they get a bench bat from one of these teams. But what position would that bench bat play? Right, Brandon, what position would you want the bench bat to play? Um, and so one of the other points you're making, Brandon, and let me call it up so I'll show it, is they need to get the rookies off the major league club bench. Yeah, well, I think the Astros are going to do kind of a, I don't know if this is a politically correct word to use, but they're going to do a purge of the minor league system this off season, and part of that's going to be Rule 5 related. It's also, some of these, like, Bly Madras is not going to be here next year, right? And so, um, you know, I just think it is what it is. Well, eventually, Johnny, the Astros will become like the Phillies and the Royals of old. But hopefully, we can hold it off. All right. So Captain Sue says, "What's up, fam? Just realized." Just realized this was on. Did you see Chandler's latest article of this Dusty Baker quote? Yeah, we were talking about this. I just no, no, no. Dusty Baker is. I mean, guys, guarantee you will not reach that conclusion when I am done with the hot seat tracker. I may take a couple days to get it done because I'm just that mad. No, the fact that our manager thinks that is just shows how clueless they are. All right, are they our Astros becoming the Royals? Aren't they? No. Well, Johnny, here is one thing. There's a wave of prospects coming in, mainly in the outfield. The question is, like, what are the Astros going to do at third base post Bregman? What are the Astros going to do at second base, even though we don't want to think about it post Altuve. Now, you can say that this year they may have convinced themselves they can live with Dubon at second base, but Dubon is now tracking to have like I don't know what it is after today, but mid 80s WRC plus player. I mean, he's not the average player he was. That I guess that kind of puts him near the bottom middle of second baseman in the major league because second base is not a great offensive position. Um, the other point, Johnny, you're making here is like if we get any bench players or any players that one may think that Dana may target, will Dusty actually use him? I mean, they got him two significant upgrades offensively to the players he was playing, and he didn't use them. So I don't I don't know, guys. I you know I just so everybody knows, I know people get frustrated with my tone and how negative I am about this manager. Next year, if we have I mean, I think I said to somebody in a DM conversation, if we had a manager that could give me a coherent reasoning for the moves he makes, not only would I be okay with it, I would probably be defending it. Much like what I did with AJ Hinch. If you have a reasonable explanation for what you're doing, I'm all in for it. And if that reason makes sense, the things Dusty Baker says don't make any sense, guys. And that's what frustrates me. And I hope you're right, Brandon. I hope Matthews is a fast riser and can be here in time for Bregman Altuve. Uh, I don't know that we really want to get into this, but Gabriel, I do not expect that the Astros in 2025 will be able to sign both Bregman and Altuve. I think they will make the choice, the romantic choice, and probably the best for the franchise to keep Altuve. If best for the franchise financially would be probably to keep Altuve and let Altuve retire as an Astro. I think um, the Bregman probably be the better baseball move. I do worry that Bregman. I do have a theory that everybody has a certain number of swings and baseball plays in it, and I think Bregman's been using his up at like a two double allocation every year he's played baseball because he just practices too dang much. So I do wonder, like, is Bregman one of those players that is going to crater in his early 30s, and therefore it may not be, you know, it may not really be the right move baseball wise. And Altuve, maybe just because of his skill set, like Altuve can hit bad pitches from, like, can Altuve hit bad pitches for the rest of his life, kind of thing. I don't, maybe. Um, Johnny says, because Dusty and his loyalties are so terrible, veteran players have cost our Astros games. That's why we're so mad. I mean, I, you know, I said this on Twitter today in my Twitter tirades. You know, on my Twitter tirades about Dusty. You know, we we have a lot of times we hear about how much of a player's manager Dusty is and how he always has the players back, but that really only applies to some of the players, and it's really frustrating to me that the players I think a manager should have the most care for and the most be protecting the most are the players that Dusty Baker routinely throws under the bus. Like today, he threw Diaz under. He just in this other quote, he's literally comparing Diaz, who is a 100 WRC plus player, give or take WRC plus points. So he's anywhere from being a 5% below average to 5% above average, with the potential to being significantly more than that, which as a catcher is a really good catcher. He's comparing that to the player that since the moment he entered the league has delivered the least offensive WAR among all players. That it's not even close. Martin Maldonado is a historic 71 WRC plus player, and it's WRC plus. I mean, guys, you can look it up for me. It's like 50 something right now. He's half the offensive player that Diaz has, and when he isn't on a hot streak. I almost said something I don't want to say publicly. If he's not in one of his magical hot streaks that come from nowhere, he's like a 30 to 20 WRC plus, or even worse than that player. There's no comparison between those two players. None. And for Dusty Baker to make the comparison is utter BS. Great question, Brandon. All right, so I'll give my answer, but I want to hear everybody's answer to this question. What would make this trade deadline a success for the Astros with realistic expectations is for Dana Brown to be able to get a pitcher that this team can use in in the in the postseason. That would be my number one win for the trade deadline. Is that Dana Brown gets either a starter or a long reliever that plays a critical role in the postseason. For me, that's preferably a left-handed pitcher. That even if that left-handed pitcher is a starter, then maybe he's in the long reliever role. As Jeremy Foster said before, maybe Belak goes in that long reliever role. I, the other thing I did want to mention and I did want to talk about before we finish this up is like a lot of us keep talking about like Singleton, right? So let's talk about the Singleton of it all. I have been convinced for about a month that Singleton was not going to, well, from whenever I wrote the Singleton article, whatever that was. I write so many, I forget the days, guys. I do not think Lorenzen. Rodriguez worries me a little bit. Um, Lorenzen, yes. Rodriguez, I'm worried about about the finances of that. Snell would be an interesting because he's a rental Hector. I mean, these are the things that have happened. If they do happen, they would be success. I really would like to have Alex Wood, but Alex Wood's done pretty bad. Although I think his secondary stats are better than his primary stats. So, and Jay, the problem with Alex Wood is I don't know that the Giants are sellers, right? And I don't. I mean, I initially had them in the filter of teams that could be interested in outfielder, but I don't think there's a really good match. Alex Wood has a negative trade value, so it shouldn't cost him hardly anything. But it has a negative trade value for a team wanting to trade, and I don't know that. The hope was that the Giants would be out of the postseason at this point, and they're not. So I just I don't know that they're going to sell. They're probably more likely buyers. Um, so I think for me the win comes if the Astros are able to get a left-handed pitcher here that can help in the postseason. Singleton could be the lefty bat that they need. Um, Angels just What is that, Hector? Acquired Grishik and Crone. So the Angels are. I, I don't. Angels fans, I don't know, man. The Angels project to be 6 games out of the wild card, and they are buying like they are 1 game out. So either they know something about like the rest of these players that are hurt. I don't know, guys. I don't know. Did they did they make an agreement with Otani that they get a year of Otani will sign a contract for every for a year for every trade they make? Because that makes the most sense to me. Yeah, Colorado bats are a huge gamble. I mean, I guys, if you remember, Hector, I talked about Crone last year when I talked about Mancini, right? Crone was in that same article with Mancini. I just didn't. I did. I rather have had Mancini last year. So I don't know, guys. So I keep saying something. I don't think I complete the thought. So Singleton could be the left-handed bat that fills this bench. I never expected Singleton would be here until after the trade deadline because I thoroughly was convinced the Astros wanted to make sure they understood what they acquired, whether or not it was right-handed, left-handed, well, what was the defensive alignment of the player they got. What were they able to get at a reasonable price. Here's a little bit more. Let's talk about trade value and John Singleton. I don't think he's got any, but just think about this for a minute. So let me scroll down. John Singleton, zero trade value, right? Zero. But John Singleton with zero trade value does have a value for the Astros because as long as John Singleton sits in AAA and rakes, then I'm going to ask you guys to think like a GM for a minute. If you're Dana Brown sitting in a conversation with another team that you're trying to acquire a left-handed bat, which is what he says he's trying to do, you can talk down the other team and their trade value by saying, "Well, you know what? I'm just going to bring up John Singleton next week if I don't get this deal." And I don't need your player. I got John Singleton in AAA. He's ready to come up. I just haven't brought him up because I wanted to see what I was going to get at the trade deadline. But if you're just going to be difficult, well, I'll just hang up the phone and I'll bring up John Singleton next week. Singleton gives him the leverage point to threaten to walk away from any deal. Do you guys understand? Does that make sense? That 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 is a think like a GM for a minute. Think about what's happening in these trade conversations. Think about like if I'm trying to get a left-handed bat, that that Singleton is is my leverage point to not overpay for that left-handed bat. Um, yeah, Jack. One can argue that these long-term deals are not good. So be prepared next year. Be prepared in the off season that if the Astros do not structure a deal with Kyle Tucker, that Kyle Tucker either will be traded this off season or traded at the trade deadline next off season. And I think if I remember right, help me out, Johnny or somebody, that he's he's on the Astros to 2025, but I don't think they want to trade Kyle Tucker on July of 2025. I think they want to get more value for him. And if he's not going to sign a long-term deal, they will trade him. They need to. Okay, guys, we have right at an hour. Let's do this as the 5 minute warning. Hopefully you guys have had you thought it was a good conversation. A lot of folks with us. You guys are doing a great job of throwing in comments and questions. Um, tell me what you think. Any other trade possibilities you want to discuss? Let me see. Space soon. Hey, what you could do, Jay, is you could have signed up for Patreon. You could have been here, and you could have been in the conversation. You could have interrupted Larry the GM, and you could have you could have dominated this conversation. My patrons had the ability. Michael was here for a while. I think I talked too much, so sorry, Michael. But you could be here right now if you followed the link the patrons had tonight, and you could be in the conversation. Anything else, guys? We can go to Twitter Space and talk some more. But okay, Jay. Um, guys, it's going to be a. You think we're going to trade with the Guardians Monday or Tuesday? All right. Let's go look at the Guardians. What do you think we're getting from the Guardians, Brandon? Okay, now number one, the Guardians are a half game out of the Central, but you think they're like, nah, we're in sell mode. I mean, they've already sold. They sold the bat, right? They sold um, Ahmed Rosario. They got Noah Syndergaard. So is that a sell or is that a? I mean, if they intend for Syndergaard, any pitcher with a working arm, uh, well, okay, we can. I think I did this, but BB and Logan, Williams, BB and Logan. All right, here we go. Guardians, Williams, BB 41. Not getting him. Uh, Logan Williams 44. Not getting him. This is why I didn't have a trade for the Guardians. Logan, where is he? No, Logan Allen. Okay, sorry. Knew something was wrong there. Allen's going to be high too. Allen, 12.8. Allen's the only one you could possibly get. All right, well, Bieber, Bieber 1.7. If you're willing to pay that salary, I guess you could do that. I don't think the Guardians are going to trade you Bieber when they're still in the race. I don't. But um, he's hurt, right? Shane Bieber, elbow inflammation. He's not. They're not trading him. Could an Astros bull? Brandon. Maybe because aren't both Stanek and Maton rentals? Yeah, Stanek and Maton both rentals. I mean, I don't, maybe I mean that would make sense, but neither one of them has much trade value. I'll tell you that. And if Maton keeps having days like he had today, that gonna it's gonna blow up even worse. Maton 0, Stanek, yeah, Stanek negative -0.2. Neither has trade value. I think those were both in my like buyers. I didn't agree with the price. So I think their value is more than that, but it's not much because they are both rentals. They're rental middle relievers that are having meh years at this point. All right, guys, we are at the 5 minute mark. I hope you enjoyed this. Um, so I have a choice. I can go get frustrated by doing the Maldonado hot seat tracker, or we can go to Twitter Space and talk some more there. I guess let's go to Twitter Space. I really don't want to. When I write the update to the Maldonado hot seat tracker, it's not going to be fun. Um. Okay, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, we'll see what happens with the Astros in the next couple of days, and we'll see what to do. So let me answer this question, Jay. I would not give up all my farm system for this team because even if I mean I don't even know what the deal that you'd be trying to make at this point. Like what deal could you make that would solve all the Astros problems, all the Astros weaknesses? I guess it would be the cease. I mean, if the answer is if I trade the entire farm system for Dylan Cease and Luis Robert, that would be the ultimate like fix for this team. I'm not even sure that team would be the favorite to win the World Series this year. The Braves are that good. So I would not try to fix it that way. Jay, I would not necessarily fix it for free agency, but I think there's probably some deals to be made in the offseason that would be better deals. Plus, I mean, you're going to understand where Lance McCullers Jr. is. You're going to understand where Garcia is. So some of the deals you would make now may not be the things you need to make in the off season for next year. So I don't I would not sell the farm for this team to be try to make what I believe is a long shot at best run for the World Series. And I've been on. I mean, I've been basically at that position since like February. I mean, I'm the guy that said they would win 92 games and barely eke out the division, and I've I haven't moved from my position from when everybody said they told me that the Astros would be better than they were last year, and this team was winning 100 games again. Like, okay, listen to me now, hear me later. They're winning 92 and they're barely winning eking out the division. Like that to me is like best case scenario right now. And I don't think that team wins the World Series against the Atlanta Braves. Um, Maybe they would if they had Dylan Cease and Luis Robert, but it would be a battle. So I wouldn't do it. All right, guys, we'll talk to you later. Give me about 10 minutes, and I will be on Twitter Space. Is that cool? Okay, thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. Jay admits he was wrong. All right, talk to you later. Thanks for joining in, guys. Hope you had a good time. Bye bye.